welcome to the last part of this series. In this tutorial, we will be implementing the icon, the button image for the widget. Now, we will be implementing an image for when we are using the keyboard and mouse, and we will be implementing one for when we are using the controller, the Xbox controller. Okay, so let's get started. Let's go into our interaction widget header, and let's include game framework, game framework, input device subsystem.h. Okay, now let's create a variable for it. So u property, u input device subsystem, u input device subsystem. Let's call it input device subsystem. Okay, and let's go here and override the native construct. So virtual void native construct. In here, we want to get the input device subsystem. So to do it, we say input device subsystem is equal to j engine get engine subsystem, and the engine subsystem is u input device subsystem. Okay. Next, we want to create a function to update the image. So let's go and create a void update button image, and it takes two parameters. The first parameter is f platform user ID. Let's call it platform user ID, and the second one is f input ID, or f input device ID. Yeah, f input device ID. Let's call it input device ID. Okay, so now if no input device subsystem, we return. We stop executing the function. Now f hardware device identifier, let's copy this, is equal to input device subsystem get recently used hardware device, this one. Okay, and it takes parameter the platform user ID, so this one, platform user ID. Now, so this struct holds data about our latest used hardware device. For example, the keyboard and mouse. If we last pressed a button on the keyboard and mouse, it's gonna return data about the keyboard and mouse. And if we did it on the controller, it's gonna return about data about the controller. And the data that it returns is the type of the device. Is it controller? Is it a where is it? A primary device type. That's here. Here it is. So it returns the device type, like is it flight stick, racing wheel, motion, touch, gamepad, uh, keyboard and mouse, and so on. It also returns the hardware device identifier. That's a FNAME. So it returns, if it's keyboard and mouse, it returns KBM, for example. It stands for keyboard and mouse. So basically, it's an ID. Okay, so now we need to create a map in here. So you property, edit defaults only, category parameters, and tmap of type fname, and it returns a texture, view texture 2D. Let's call it device name to texture, or hardware device name to texture. Okay, so now we need to find, we need to check if the device you are using has an icon, has a texture, and we populate this from the editor later on. So first we need to check if view texture 2D texture found is equal to hardware device name to texture dot find, and what we will find, we will search for is the ID. So hardware device identifier dot where is it? Hardware device identifier. Okay, this one, the name, the F name. So if we found a texture, we need to apply it to our button image. So button image, set brush from texture, and the texture is the texture found. And we stop, page done. Now if you get an error here, it's because you have to include this header here, the components image header. Okay, and now in the native construct, we need to actually call this function. So in order for it to update, I will show you before we call it what happens if you don't call it in the native construct. So as we said before, this is our interaction widget. Okay, it has this image. Now if you go in here, it will stay the same because we didn't call this function. So now if you call it, it takes two parameters. First, we need this, create a local variable because we can keep it empty. Okay, and for the platform user ID, we need to get the player controller. So a player controller is equal to get, let's include gameplay, or we don't need to do it. Get word, get first player controller. Okay, now f platform user ID, plat user ID is equal player controller get platform user ID. Okay, now let's copy this and paste it in the first parameter. Now if you compile, It's not working because, oh, we forgot to populate the tmap in here. So let's go to class defaults of the interaction widget and look for parameters. And let's type KBM for keyboard and mouse. That's the ID for it. And we don't have the images yet, so I will leave a link in the description. I will import them now and leave a link in the description. Okay, so I imported our images. We have one for the keyboard, one for the Xbox, and one for the PS. However, will not be using this because I'm not sure what the PlayStation ID is, to be honest. I couldn't find it anywhere online. And also because I can't connect my PS4 controller to my laptop without a third-party application software. So I will not be using this. However, if you want to implement it, you can just search for the ID of it and just add it here. Okay, so keyboard and mouse is E button. And for the Xbox, the ID is X input controller. And let's search for Xbox. There it is. Now for the PS4, I'm not sure what's the ID, but if you find it, just add it here and add the square image, the square button image. Okay. Now if we try and play, yeah, it's working. However, if I connect my Xbox controller while this image is visible, this widget, and I try to play with my Xbox controller, it still says E because the engine didn't know that the hardware was changed. Well, it knows, but however, there is nothing binded, no function binded to whenever the controller is changed, the hardware is changed. So it will stay E forever, unless we bind one. So let's do it fast. Now in the native construct, let's go input device subsystem, and on input hardware device changed dot add dynamic. This add to interaction widget, and the function is this function we did, update button image. Now in order for it to work, because we added a dynamic function, we need to wrap it with a uFunction macro, like so. Now if we go and compile, I'm going to disconnect my controller. Okay, as you can see, I disconnected it. Now if we play, if we start, it's working. Now if we connect my controller again, and it says input device has been connected and it's changed to the Xbox. Now if I play with my keyboard again, it goes back to the keyboard. Now my controller, now my keyboard, now my controller, now my keyboard. Okay, so that's it guys for this tutorial. That's it for the story guys. I hope you have enjoyed it and learned something from it. Now if you want, in later tutorials, I can add any interactable you want. Just let me know in the comments what interactable you want me to do, and I can always expand this this tutorial by adding any interactable. Just let me know. And that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to help you. Take care. One more thing I want to clarify. Now, inside the interactable space, the handle interaction function, we did a print to screen check in the first tutorial, but whenever we interact with this, with the TV, this one is not being called because we didn't call the super handle interaction. Now, if you want to call the base, if you have a base functionality for the handle interaction, you need to call the super handle interaction inside the subclasses. Now, if we compile, it should work. We should get an I am interactable. Yeah. Okay. And if you want to be more specific, you could just remove this and add a print interacted with get class, get name. Now this will return interacted with and the interactable, which is bp underscore television. Yeah, bp underscore television. And last thing I want to say, you might be wondering why we passed this parameter here and we didn't use it. Well, because maybe later on you will want an interactable. When you interact with something, you will want to access a specific function inside the character, or maybe you want to play an animation montage or whatever. So we will be needing this. But in our example, we didn't really need it, but it's very useful for later if you want to use it. And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching again. Take care.